Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Old Hunt, where we are still celebrating 10 years of Bloodborne. However, this particular episode is going to be slightly unusual, because there have been a number of things in the course of this playthrough that I sort of wish I had been doing differently, alternative paths that I might have taken, and they've sort of been, building up here and there. And I wasn't thinking I was going to address all of them. There was one dialogue that I really wanted to get in this playthrough that I missed, and I wanted to bring that back. And I said in the course of the series, yeah, I'm going to just edit that in because I think it's important enough to be included. So I did that, but while I was in the process of doing that, a couple other things sort of got jumbled up in my mind, right? There were some other things that I was thinking, maybe I should address this, maybe not. And then there was something that happened where I watched this video that was talking about how there's not really a lot of, difference in the gameplay that you can get in Bloodborne, and I sort of disagree with that. I sort of agree with that. I see where that comment is coming from, and to some extent, I think part of the problem is that I think one of the things that the creators expected you to do is play New Game Plus more than people play New Game Plus. I'm guilty of this myself. When I think of a game that I'm going to play through in Bloodborne, I think of starting from the very beginning and not necessarily going into higher and higher New Game Plus cycles. It's given me a potential idea for another series at some point in the future. And I don't know if that'll ever come to be, but I have the idea. Anyway, while all this was jumbling around in my mind, I thought, well, if I'm going to edit in one thing, I might as well edit in a couple others. So I've got a few scenes from an alternate playthrough that I want to show you, that I've got some, select moments that I'll be editing into, and I've got, me from the far past, me from the past, and me from the near past, and we'll all be presenting, different aspects of alternative things that could have happened in this playthrough. I'm going to go with a little bit of the Bloodborne theming here and say that these are sort of echoes from another world, right, where we have all these different worlds that you can ring bells and their sounds carry across the worlds, and you can summon collaborators. That's sort of the lore for how the multiplayer function in this game works. And, it's another version of this sort of thing that's happening. I thought it'd be a fun way of providing a little bit of connective tissue here. Or, because I'm doing this thing where I've got past versions of myself in various forms, and I still have to do editing, right? Because even after I do the editing for the episode, there's going to be a version of me that's putting the video up on YouTube. And in that far future version of me, I'm going to be putting in timestamp. Normally I haven't been doing segments of videos, chapters of the video, which I always do for Translation Born in the newer episodes. It took me a long time to figure out that was a good idea, but eventually I realized that was a good idea. I started to do that routinely in Translation Born. Haven't been doing that for this series because it's not that type of series, but this episode is definitely that type of episode. So far future Matt will have been, going through and putting in chapters for the video. So if you're bored by any one of these digressions and you want to just get to the meaty lore section, or you don't care about the lore, you just want to see what my alternative playthrough is like, and you find one thing is a little bit boring, another thing's a little more exciting, you can jump around with a little more ease. You'll have a better idea of what point in the video might interest you. Hopefully. I have a tendency to shoot myself in the foot when I do this sort of thing, in the sense that I think probably the most helpful thing for me to do when I'm creating chapter titles for the video chapters is to just be very descriptive and say what's going to be in what part of the video. But part of my brain is just designed to want to come up with titles that appeal to me. And so I end up having a little bit more fun than maybe I should have in titling video segments. But hopefully they'll be at least discernible for those of you who are looking to get to specific moments in that alternative playthrough. All right, I think that's enough preamble. I'm going to throw things back to far past Matt, and hopefully he'll receive them well. And I'll see you again at the end of this episode, and we'll do a little bit of wrapping things up and putting it all together. We're not actually going to make any game progress in this episode, but I thought this was a fun sort of idea, a fun way of looking at an alternative playthrough that could have been another world where it has been realized. And yeah, I'll just let far past Matt introduce you to that now. Thanks for the setup, Far Future Matt. This is Far Past Matt, giving a check-in here. I figured this would be an interesting point. I started this playthrough thinking, okay, I want to go back and get a dialogue that I missed in sort of the main playthrough that I was doing. So that's why this character's name is Imp, short for Impostor Iosefka, right? Because we're collaborating with Impostor Iosefka, that's the dialogue that I missed that I want to recover. So everybody, this is Imp. I hope that you're very nice to her. And I'm doing something a little bit different, right? Because in my original build for the old hunt, I was going through and thinking, I want to mostly do arcane, sort of turned into a strength arcane build because I wanted to use a bunch of weapons. That was sort of one of the reasons I wanted to go the arcane route. And if you want to use a lot of weapons, especially in the base version of the game, like DLC added a little bit more variety in terms of stats, but especially in the base version of the game, you really need strength. And if you want to do anything else, right, the arcane is the way to go, right? So the idea in the main playthrough for the old hunt is you start out focusing to some extent on strength so that you can use a wide variety of weapons, and then over time, shift focus more towards arcane. And turned into a sort of strength arcane playthrough, which I was kind of hoping to avoid after Translation Born, but I feel like it really is the best way to show off the greatest variety of weapons. Anyway, that's not what's happening in this playthrough. This playthrough is a skill blood tinge build, and it's a totally different way to come at the game. And like I said, it takes a little bit longer to set up. I've put in most of that effort at this point, and this is sort of like the break point. As you can see, I've currently got 20 vitality, 20 skill, and 20 blood tinge. So in terms of like skills, they're all broken even, essentially. However, if you look over at the central column here, we can see that right-hand weapon number 1 has a combined attack power of 127, and normally right-hand weapon, 1 or 2, like that's going to be where your bread and butter damage comes from. But if you look down, left-hand weapon 1 is doing 131 in terms of its overall attack power. So that means we're actually more powerful with our left-hand weapon number 1, which is our pistol, right? It's just the hunter pistol that we get at the start of the game. That's actually out-damaging our right-hand weapon right now. What's going on with that? Well, for one thing, like, it's not runes. If you look over at the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see that I don't have any runes equipped, and that's for good reasons, because I don't have the rune workshop tool yet. So I don't have any way of equipping the runes right now. So that's where I am in the process. I haven't completely finished Hemwick. I've gone through most of the area, but I still have to fight the boss. And I haven't yet gotten the rune workshop tool. So runes aren't the answer. So what's going on here? All my skills, all my attack stats are even at 20 at the moment. So if we come over to the actual weapon portion of the workshop, let's take a look at the blood gems. What's going on here? So if we look at the blood gems set up here, we can see that our base damage with the threaded cane, which is this is a skill blood tinge build, and the early game weapon that works best with skill is the threaded cane. So that's what I went with. We're looking at 99 base damage for physical attack, and we're getting plus 28 from our various bonuses, right? That includes the scaling of the weapon, and it also includes the additional, you're getting a 2.1% boost from the first blood gem and a 1.1% physical attack damage boost from the second blood gem, right? And we don't have the third one unlocked yet because this is still only plus 3 of the threaded cane. So that's what's going on with the threaded cane. That's how we get the, very simplistic overall attack rating of 127. And if we come over here, we'll note that I also have my hunter pistol at plus 3, so plus 3 and plus 3. And the base damage of the blood attack of the hunter pistol is 97 compared to the 99 physical attack from the threaded cane. So 2 less, but I'm getting plus 34. What's going on with that? Well, I've got this incredible blood gem. So even though the pistol only has 1 gem slot available, it's getting plus 12.6% to its blood attack, which means it's out-damaging the threaded cane even with its 2 slots. Now, that math is about to change, right? If I wanted to keep going with the threaded cane, I'd unlock the 3rd slot. But the 3rd gem slot on the threaded cane, I think it would probably stay relatively even, right? It would probably help catch up in terms of physical attack versus blood attack, but I don't think it would necessarily surpass what I can do with the hunter pistol right now. And if you compare, right, this is the other blood gem that we have is plus 1.8 to our blood attack, which is way lower. That's much more in line with the sorts of bonuses that we see for our physical attack boosting blood gems. This one is like a total outlier. And we actually pick it up in the Healing Church workshop. I think it's in a chest. And if you're not doing a blood tinge build, like, it might as well be a waste of a treasure, because 12.6% boosted to a stat that you got super low, and a weapon you're probably not upgrading, right? In the old hunt, I haven't upgraded my left-hand weapon at all. So it can't even hold, the one gem slot it has isn't even available. So what's the point of this, 12.6% boost, right? It's nice and high, but never going to use it. But if you are doing a blood tinge build, well, this is a great thing to have relatively early on in the game. And as I said, I haven't really gone through Hemwick yet. So that's the setup that I have now. And my idea, I said in the old hunt, I was going to start out with, the sort of strength arcane mix, and then shift over a little bit more dramatically towards arcane as time went on. My idea for this playthrough, right, I'm starting out with skill, blood tinge, even split, and that's sort of been carrying me so far. But ultimately, I want to take this to, like, all guns all the time. And so, in order to make that happen, we're going to be shifting to... I'm short the blood. I was like, why am I not able to improve my weapon here the way that I want to? I'm going to shift over to, like, all guns all the time. That's the idea behind this playthrough. And I can solve the problem of my not having enough blood echoes very simply. And you'll also notice I haven't been as conservative with these resources here that provide you with blood echoes on demand in this playthrough, just because I'm trying to move a little bit faster than in the other one. So I'll just use one of these, and, maybe the menu system has gotten a little bit confused, because I guess I was bringing up this menu while I still had the other menu open. We've solved that problem now, and that 1500, maybe I'll use one more, because I don't want to run out, like, partway through. Here we go. I want to still have at least one of each variety of cold blood, but it's nice to get that little extra boost. And now we should be able to upgrade whatever we want. That's what I was looking at, right? So threaded cane is going to take our twin bloodstone charge, same as our hunter pistol. And because I'm looking to eventually shift this over towards a build that's all about guns all the time, I'm going to be letting the hunter pistol take charge here. And I thought it would be fun just to sort of show off what we can do with this build now that we've got, 115 base attack, it looks like. So let's take a look at the blood gem thing again here, right? We're getting, 99 plus 28 over here still. That hasn't changed. Now we're getting 115 plus 43 because the scaling has improved on the base level weapon. We have now a B level scaling with blood tinge, and we've got the same, plus 12.6. Yeah, plus 12.6 on the blood gem there. So all of a sudden, we're up to 158 on our pistol. So that's going to do some serious damage. And I thought it would be fun, like I was saying, to go through and show off something else that I failed to highlight in the old hunt. If you look on the upper right-hand corner of the screen again, you'll note that I have 0 insight. And I sort of mentioned this in an episode of the old hunt, but I think it'll be interesting to see. It's not going to be a great showcase for the cool things that you can do with a gun-only build. I'm sort of planning to come back to that, maybe at another part of the playthrough, to show that off, give you a better idea of, like, the cool way that can work. But I do want to show what happens if you face off against the Witch of Hemwick and you have 0 insight, and I want to give you an opportunity to see this gun in action, even if the fight itself might end up being a little bit boring as a result. So I'm going to... Oops, this is the wrong headstone. I'm going to warp in back to Hemwick, and I will see you again very shortly. Okay, now, I've talked in theory about some of the things that you can do in a blood tinge-based playthrough, and one of those things involves, here we go, Bone Marrow Ash. I don't necessarily think I'm going to use that because it's sort of a limited resource, and I doubt we're actually going to need it, but that is one of the things that you can do. The other thing that's important for a blood tinge playthrough is you want to be using blood bullets all the time. You can get 5 bullets when you make blood bullets out of... so essentially you can think of one blood vial, because I went from 20 to 19, right? Because I wanted to heal back the damage that I dealt to myself. You can sort of, not maybe 100%, but essentially you can think of one blood vial as being worth 5 Quicksilver bullets. So I've got, you know, if I use every single blood vial not to heal, but on making blood bullets, that's 100 bullets that I can fire, plus the 20 that are right there in my inventory. Plus, if I really need, I could then burn, you know, my health and not heal it back with a blood vial. So I've got, you know, maximum 125 Quicksilver bullets. I don't think we'll need 125 Quicksilver bullets. And in reality, right, that's optimistic. You're probably going to be using some of those blood vials to heal, right? I'm probably going to get hit at some point when I'm trying to make this run back, and therefore will need to heal some amount of damage with the blood vial. So it's not like a perfect conversion rate. So if need be, I intend to make use of those, of the bone marrow ash in order to boost damage so that I'm able to get through the fight without having to worry about running out of bullets. But I sort of doubt that they'll be necessary. We'll see. We'll find out. This should actually be an incredibly easy fight, so I'm not super worried about what I'm running into. All right, just gotta throw off that Molotov cocktail thrower. Excuse me, ladies. All right, and we'll come down here, right into the boss room. They'll chase me to the edge of it, but they won't be able to get through the fog. Okay, and here we are in the boss arena. And this is going to be a very, very boring boss fight, because this is all I'm going to do. This is the thing about having no insight in the Witch of Hemwick fight. When you have no insight, the boss doesn't summon the enemies to wander the room. So all I'm going to be doing is unloading my weapon on the boss. I'm going to be running around looking for the two witches, right? The one with the health bar that's currently visible, the one with the other health bar that we can't see. And when we find a version of the Witch of Hemwick, I'm going to be locking onto them. And after doing so, I'm going to, you know, empty a clip. Uh-oh. And this is why, you know, this is the other thing, right? I'm not going to be able to, like, heal anything back when it comes to, I'm not going to be able to heal anything back when it comes to recovering damage using Rally. So there's another reason. Already, I'm off the theoretical maximum effect of using every single blood vial to make blood bullets, right? But you can see the damage that I'm doing to this boss is already proven significant, and I've only found her twice so far. Oh, I'm hearing. Here we go. Yeah, 103 damage a shot. That's not bad. Not bad at all. And, yeah, like I said, this is going to be sort of a tension-free fight. And this is the nice thing about having the regular stock of Quicksilver bullets available, is because I don't have to worry about, like, if I happen to have a shot but am out of my blood bullets, I can still take advantage of the regular bullets if I want to. I didn't want to in that particular instance, but I have the option. So I don't have to be 100% efficient with all my bullets all the time. Okay. Right. And again, right, that was inefficient. I made blood bullets when I had only 4 blood bullets remaining. So, you know, what's the point? I effectively lost 1 blood bullet as a result. Oh, they're both here right now. This will be fun. Sort of get in equidistant range of both. Okay, that's the one with the health bar. This is the one I want to fire at then. Okay. Could make some more blood bullets. Getting into the rhythm of the fight here. Oh, hello. And I don't have to actually go up onto that platform in order to fire. Yeah, that one was a wasted bullet. I kind of knew it was risky. Oh, I'm hearing sounds over here. Here we go. Is this the health bar? No, not the health bar one. I should have kept firing. That's okay. That's okay. Again, I realize this isn't the most thrilling fight to watch in all of Bloodborne, but I do think it's a good showcase for how different the fight can be. Oop, hello. And here's something else I can... Well, I could theoretically have done. If that had... if that interrupt had remained valid, I could have then followed up with a visceral for a ton of damage. Okay. Alright, she got away. Yeah, I knew I didn't do a great job of keeping their health bars in parallel, so I'm probably going to have to deal with the revived Witch of Hemwick. But at this point, I think you get the idea. So if I do have to deal with the revived version, I might just skip ahead. Might go from... Uh-oh. Now we can both attack at range. But that did give me an idea of where the Witch of Hemwick currently is. There we are. Hello there. I'll just take some cover here. And now that I know where you are... Yep, she's back. Actually, I think I can wrap this up pretty well. Play with these shoulder buttons a bit here. Okay. Heal up. Get a little bit of tension going on here. But now I can more effective... Oh. I was going to say, more effectively control the health bars. The problem is, I really thought that the one with the bigger health bar was that other one that I came at, so I don't know what's going on here. Alright, gotta find this one more time, and I'm not going to bother with any more blood bullets. I'm just going to go straight for the kill. And hopefully not have to deal with another revived version. There it is! Game over. I hunted. Game over. Far from game over, but still. That should give you some idea of how different this fight can be if you're going, you know, pure blood tinge, you're relying on your gun, and you've got 0 insight, meaning you don't have to deal with the, I think they're called mad ones, whatever the bosses, not bosses, the other enemies are that the witches summon in. So that should give you a good idea what's going on here, and I think the next time I see you, we're going to go from, you know, me, who is, you know, far past Matt, to regular past Matt, just past Matt. I'll pass forward the torch, and I'll see you for an important dialogue. What an elegant handoff there, far past Matt. Hi, everyone. It's me, past Matt. And, yeah, this, again, is a little bit of a convoluted episode in terms of the timeline. But we're here. It's been, you know, some interval of time in the real world, but we've skipped past all that nonsense in the world of the game, the magic of editing. And I am outside the door of Impostor Iosefka, and I have advanced the timeline in the game. This is the point where we have been into the back of the clinic, discovered the secret of the aliens, and we've talked to Impostor Iosefka. Sort of, she talked at us, really. We went to go inside and see her directly, and she said, "Oh, such a shame. Turn back and we could still work together." And we did. You know, we became knowing collaborators. And then I returned and she said, "Hey, you know, this is very important. You're one of the bright ones. You can help me do a good thing here. And I really need more patience." So I heeded her call. We went out into the city of Yharnam. I found someone else to send to the Impostor so that she could continue her, you know, quote-unquote clinical trials, if we're being literal about the translation. And now I've sent her another patient. There are others, right? This isn't necessarily about finding that one NPC in the Forbidden Woods who failed to appear in the Old Hunt playthrough. This is about getting the specific dialogue that happens when you send patients to Impostor Iosefka as a collaborator. And we're going to get a dialogue. I hope this time we're actually legitimately going to get this dialogue because I think it's really interesting. Here we go. Let's talk to Impostor Iosefka, see what she has to say.
Oh, hello. You're alive. Good. I've received another patient. This time, I'll be trying old blood. I've achieved much, and I owe it all to you. Take this as thanks. Custom made. And cheers to the discovery of kinship. Doesn't it make you feel warm inside?
Okay, anything else to say?
If you find any humans, bring them to me. I'm depending on you, brave hunter.
Okay, that's sort of the standard check back in dialogue. But if we consider the dialogue that we got, there are a couple of phrases there that I think are super interesting from like a lore and translation perspective. And this isn't translation born. I'm not necessarily going to dive into them in full detail. Maybe I'll cut in editing for yet further time shenanigans when it comes to the magic of editing and putting together this episode as a whole. I haven't decided that yet. But what I have decided is it's worth at least showing this off and mentioning just a couple things. So, first of all, I wanted to bring up the fact that she mentions she wants to try old blood. That's pretty significant because unlike, you remember when we had that flashback and I was saying kanete isn't an adjective that means old, right? Kanete means sort of beforehand. And so you could take the past phrase for getting into the Forbidden Woods as from beforehand fear blood. Back in that episode, I mentioned how the translators were likely communicating with the developers and so knew to include the idea that this wasn't just any blood, but the blood. As much as I'm persuaded that this communication took place, though, I'm sure there are others who might be inclined to just look at the Japanese subtitles by themselves. Well, this is a little bit potentially some additional evidence in terms of favoring the idea of old blood in Bloodborne as a concept, because the old blood translation that we get in this dialogue, we're actually seeing an adjective for the word old, furui, and it's modifying the word for blood, chi, right? When she talks about doing a clinical trial on a patient in this circumstance, she, in Japanese, the subtitle is furui chi, right? She's going to try old blood in her next clinical trial. And that sort of goes some way, I think, towards showing that there is this idea of old blood in the game. That old blood would be the blood, like the sacred blood, that the adage is all about saying we should be careful of, right? Be ever wary of the old blood. Fear the old blood. Fear the blood from beforehand, right? If we're going back to that sort of back and forth. And I wasn't aware of this like level of nitty-gritty detail actually until someone left a comment on one of my very old translation born episodes, and I like scoured the text of the video game, and lo and behold, according to the Bloodborne lore translation guide, like if you go down this particular side path for this side quest and you get this knowing collaborator dialogue and then you send further patients to the clinic, this is another instance where we are seeing the idea of the old blood referenced, if in slightly different words, right? So I wanted to bring that up. So that's the idea of the old blood. The other thing that I think is a very interesting translation that gives me some sense that perhaps the people on the translation team had some level of exposure to the lore is, and I mean, this is the sort of lore that if they had been working on item translations contemporaneously, again, I don't necessarily know how the timeline of all this works out. They could have been working on dialogues first and then done item translation later, because I've harped a lot in this playthrough, The Old Hunt, about how it seems like they had better communication for the voiced lines than they did for the item text translations. And I've been talking about all the advantages of the voice text work. Well, I don't think they had, just based off of certain decisions and certain things that we've seen in the item text descriptions, I don't think they've had such robust communication when it came to the item text descriptions. There are certain things in there, certain interpretations where I think if they had had access to the full game, they probably would have made some different decisions. And a couple of those things even crop up in the dialogue translations. So whatever this process was, it wasn't perfect. I think they did the best they could, but it wasn't perfect. But I do think it's interesting that she mentions like something to the effect of like cheers, like something to the discovery of kinship, right? That particular phrase, discovery of kinship. If you just hear the English, that sounds very suggestive. That sounds as if we're discovering kin. And this is going to bring us back a little bit to the discovery of what's going on in the Forbidden Woods. We run into those aliens, right? And it's not here. Where is it if it's not this stat screen? Yes, okay, this is what I was looking for. In the central column here, I talked about how you go all the way to the right. It mentioned you can see the different sort of special attacks that are modifying your base attacks, right? So right now, if you go look all the way to the right in that particular column, you can see there's a little picture of a beast in a yellow square, and it's at 100, and I've talked before about how that shows how we're doing 100% damage to beasts, right? I don't have anything that's boosting it over 100%. I don't have anything detracting from it to bring it under 100%. But that's all about beasts. If we look to the left of that one, there's another yellow box, and it looks like there's maybe some sort of squid, maybe slug, right? Something to that effect. Something weird going on there. That image is meant to indicate a type of enemy called kin. And kin are sort of related to like a different state of being, right? They're things that are closer than human beings are to great ones, right? We've heard about the great ones, we know about humans, and we also know about beasts, and we get this implication. I'm not sure it's cropped up quite yet in any of the item descriptions, but if you're an old hand at Bloodborne and Bloodborne lore, you know that there is this idea of kin out there, and kin are sort of like the next step up. They're not quite apparently on the level of great ones, but they're kin, like they're kindred. And so when Impostor Iosefka has this line talking about kinship and the discovery of it, it sort of sounds like she's maybe talking about the discovery of these higher level beings, sort of like those aliens. Those aliens are kin-type enemies. And kin-type enemies tend to be weak to, like, Bolt, for example. That's one of their characteristics, sort of like beasts have the characteristic of tending to be weak to fire. So that's another reason why we're getting this sort of contrast. We have the fire paper and we have the bolt paper, right? And the different nature of the things that we're encountering, we can exploit different weaknesses based off of that. So it's interesting that they would phrase it that way. But if you look at the actual Japanese subtitle, she's talking about sort of, it's nice to discover a colleague, right? If you look at a literal translation, and I'll probably have put something to that effect up on the screen in editing, right? You have something to the idea that, oh, it's nice to have discovered kinship in the sense that I've found a collaborator, right? Now we're working together. And so it's another one of these instances where I think the official translators were able to make this sort of play on words, this double meaning, where on the one hand, like the Impostor Iosefka is looking to further research kinship and these beings that are close to the Great Ones. And at the same time, she's saying it's nice to have found a kindred spirit, right? Someone who is a colleague who will help me in these clinical trials that I'm running, looking to surpass our own stupidity, right? Move past humanity and get to a higher state of being. So those are the two like highlights that I wanted to bring up that I think is super interesting when it comes to the translation and the lore and the sort of double meanings and what may or may not be going on with the background of Bloodborne. And I finally tracked down the dialogue, so that's all taken care of. And now I want to have a little bit of fun, a little bit more brainless entertainment here. And so I'll cut forward again to near past Matt and let him explain what's going on with sort of the more fun scenario. Good transition there, past Matt. I am now near past Matt. And do you ever feel like you want to just do something again, right? You have the experience and you think, I just could have done that better. Well, after my last episode of The Old Hunt, I got a couple comments, and people were pointing out, hey, guess what? That Shaman Boneblade you started the episode with, you can use that against the Shadows of Yharnam, because it's a multi-enemy foe, and even though it's a boss, the Shaman Boneblade should still work. And I thought, oh man, it's a shame I didn't do that. And then I remembered, I have this playthrough. I have this other playthrough that I'm running through anyway, that I have to get at least to the start of the Forbidden Woods. And so I thought, why not end the next episode on a fun note where we retry the fight and we actually use the Shaman Boneblade. So that's the goal here. We're going to try and use the Shaman Boneblade on the Shadows of Yharnam. I have no idea how successful this will or won't be. Also, I'll get to show off I told you that my goal for this particular build, let me just bring back, if you'll remember, Imp here, is all about guns all the time. You can see I've improved a bit since I was last showing this build, right? We've got Vitality up to 25, and Blood Tinge is now at 25 because it's taken over as our primary attack stat. And I now have some Carol runes equipped. I have 2 Communion runes, which is getting me up to 24 maximum blood vials, and the Formless Erden rune, which has hit my Quicksilver bullet max up to 24. So my blood vials and my bullets are both at 24 right now. And I went somewhere we haven't been in the old hunt quite yet, just ran into the start of the area and picked up an interesting weapon that I won't be able to use in the old hunt anyway. It's called the Reitapalash, and it's sort of the basis for the, I want to say gun spear, because that's like the super literal, very awkward translation that you could come to. But the rifle spear, yeah, for the rifle spear. So the rifle spear is sort of like the heard through the rumor mill version of this weapon. And the fun thing about the Reitapalash is, so right now, right, I've got some very fancy moves that I can perform, right? Haha! Look at that. My, like, knightly moves. And I can charge up and get that, like, very fancy looking, you know, parry sort of attack type thing going on. Very fancy. But if I transform it, it turns into another gun. So all guns all the time, right? I've got R1, which will fire bullets, and I've got L2, which will fire, R2, which will fire bullets in this form. R1 is more stabs. R2, which will fire bullets, and L2, which traditionally, with my hunter pistol, will fire bullets. So we're going to go in here, guns blazing, trying to use the Shaman Bone Blade, and we're going to see what happens. And this is, I think, a fun way to sort of close out this weird episode where we've jumped into this alternate timeline in a different world, right? So here we go. Let's see what happens. I'm going straight for you. Yeah! It worked! Oh, this is incredible! Yes! Okay. Meanwhile, hey, don't look away, buddy. Oh, I need to be, uh-oh. I need to be making blood bullets here. Uh-oh. Are they all on the same team again? So much for the Shaman Bone Blade. Okay, so that didn't go entirely according to plan. So I'm going to try again. I got to show off the Shaman Bone Blade. I didn't get to show off the alternative playstyle, which I thought was part of the fun here. So we're going to try this again, and maybe have a little bit more success this time. Oh, and I wanted to set up... There we go. I think that should last. I don't think Bone Marrow Ash is on a timer. I think the way that it works is, you know, it sort of goes until I take the next shot with my left-handed weapon. All right, and you, sir, are demonstrating why you need to be the one to go first. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And I get to pinpoint, just out of curiosity, how much damage does my pistol do with the... Alright, so with the Bone Marrow Ash, on a normal attack, from pretty close range, because this is the other thing about playing with a firearm build in Bloodborne, is depending on how far away you are, your damage will change. So that was pretty close. But you can see the way that Bone Marrow Ash boosts the damage of the attacks. Okay, nope. Alright, you're still the one I want to focus on. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, I see you. I see all of you. And I want to focus damage on this one in particular. Alright, there we go. Now we're into the snake transformation phase. And I'm going to switch things up from last time. I'm going to target, nope, this one. Okay? And I want to make some space. Uh-oh. That's not good. Heal up. Because here's the thing. I would like to make some blood bullets. And we got to use this, just short. All right. Get some Bone Marrow Ash going again. Okay. You are now my target, sir. Great. Can't get far enough away because of those stretchy arms. Okay. Alright, healing up. Okay, get behind the pillar. He shot me through the pillar! I want to make blood bullets. There we go. Okay. Now. Once again, I would like, there we go, to set up that situation. Ow. How about this? There we go. That's the other benefit of a skill-based build, is that when you boost your skill, I don't know how that worked, but I'm glad it did. When you boost your skill, you boost the damage that you do with visceral attacks. All right. When you gotta be, when you're facing enemies like this and you're far away, you gotta be very far away. All right. Whew. Close call. Alright, you're just a little slow, buddy. Aw, I was just a little slow that time. Uh-oh. Just about to use my blood attack, okay? The closer one provided it like a, I was gonna call it a smoke screen, but I guess it was more of a fire screen, wasn't it? Okay. Not the one I wanted to hit. Blood bullets? Yes, I made it. Okay. Drat. I wasn't expecting the stretchy arm from that one. But we're getting close. Aw. I thought up close I might have a better chance there. Alright, you're dead. Now, it's just you and me. I want to try, there we go, and not leave you, uh-oh, missed the visceral, any opportunity to summon snakes. Uh-oh. That's definitely not what I wanted to have happen. That was interesting. Uh-oh. I was in the middle of firing a bullet. Uh-oh, here we go. Yeah, look at that visceral damage. Whew! There we go again. So I got my second crack at the Shadows of Yharnam. Whew! Okay, I will now return to present Matt. And we can finally get on, I guess, get on with the episode, I was going to say. This is like actually the whole episode is all these flashbacks things, these alternate reality. We're going to head back to like the main timeline of the old hunt with the regular world that you're used to. And I'll have a few concluding thoughts. All right, everybody, welcome back to present day, present time. This has been a very strange episode for me to record and sort of try and keep in mind where I am in the narrative of everything. But hopefully you enjoyed that look at an alternative world, a possibility that could have been the echoes of another reality bleeding through into this playthrough, where we made some different choices, went with a blood tinge build, eventually ended up switching to a essentially twin pistol setup, where we were able to do a completely different sort of fight with the Shadow of Yharnam. Got to see that the Shaman Boneblade does actually work against them, and of course got that potentially significant bit of lore with the dialogue for Impostor Iosefka in the middle there. So hopefully you found this episode interesting. I know it's sort of an outlier, sort of an unusual approach to an episode, and there are still a couple other things. I want to do like a look back at everything we did in going through the Forbidden Woods. There are some ideas I've gotten from some comments, and of course I've been tracking items as I went through, novel items. I want to take a look back at them, all that stuff that this episode sort of ballooned out of my control, my expectations. So I was thinking I would do an interstitial episode where that was the focus, and then this ended up being the focus. So next time we're going to be sort of transitioning, we're going to be looking back on the Forbidden Woods, revisiting some of the points that I wanted to bring up that you have been suggesting in the comments. If you have any other suggestions in the comments or any other thoughts that you'd like to leave, those are always welcome. And I guess we can now go back, as the series sort of gets back onto the intended path here, to my traditional ending. So even though we didn't necessarily do a lot in this playthrough, it's been an interesting hunt tonight. So I will call an end to it for my evening, and I wish all of you good hunting.